Spotlight. This week we'll be focusing on BP's significant milestone celebrating 100 years in the energy sector. We're joined by Taelo Mojapelo, the CEO of BP Southern Africa, for insights into the organization's journey thus far. Taelo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Gary, and greetings to your listeners.
Well, so we understand BP SA or Southern Africa is marking a very important milestone this year. Is this year a very significant period for BP SA's milestones? Tell us about it.
Indeed, 2024 is a momentous year for us. On the 9th of May this year, we celebrated 100 years. And I'll probably just give you a bit of context around and background on the company. So incidentally, the company started as the Atlantic Refining Company of Africa. And this was in 1924. And that was the same year that the Ford had brought its Model T vehicles. So in those years, you'll recognize that vehicle ownership was very, very low. And for all the vehicles that were built, BP was leading the mobility space in making sure that we supply the fuels. And then the fuels used to be imported. Fast forward to the second half of the century, 1964, together with Shell, we opened a refinery being Sapref, which, as you know, now was actually damaged by floods in 2022. And we'll be making efforts working together with the Central Energy Fund to bring that back in service. We actually sold the refinery to the Central Energy Fund. But more importantly, as we move forward, the company then evolved over years. We were in mining at some point. We also exited mining. We now are focused heavily on servicing our customers in mobility, as well as building our Castrol brand, which, by the way, is 100% BP owned. And we service our customers through those brands.
So 100 years is quite a milestone. But we've seen in some recent business news and updates that BPSA has been offloading some assets. As you mentioned, you've pulled out of aviation. We saw an announcement about DP World and Makwanda have won bids for BPSA's secondary transport operations. Wasa bought out the East London terminal, and Sapref has since also been sold, as you mentioned. Does this by any chance mean an exit strategy, or is it a change strategy in South Africa?
I think, if anything, we want to use this 100-year milestone to actually demonstrate our ability to evolve as a company. And while this always looks like it's a divestment, it actually is responding to the environment, the prevailing conditions in the environment at that point in time. Now, I'll give you a few proof points behind this. You'll recall in 2003, the South African government passed the BBBE Act, and that was promulgated then in 2003. Shortly thereafter, in 2005, BP set up a company which is black-owned, black-operated, called Masana. We retained majority shareholding. However, we had empowerment partners that were black-owned, and that was in response to that need. And at that time, we carved out our industrial, commercial, and agricultural business, so servicing those businesses and liquid fuels. And that, for us, epitomizes excellence in black operatorship. Fast forward, we then also sold the East London terminal, as you've said. And if you recall, there was a conversation about the Liquid Fuels Charter. And one of the things that the Liquid Fuels Charter aims to do is to ensure that you've got broad-based black participation in the fuels industry. This has been an industry that's been very difficult to crack for historically disadvantaged individuals. We took a deliberate decision that we still want to maintain a position in the East London area, in the Eastern Cape. However, this presents a golden opportunity for us to actually take a black-owned company that has demonstrated performance in that industry and work with them to make sure that they can also grow. So we sold the terminal and we signed a 10-year offtake agreement, and remaining as the anchor tenant. And what that does, it ensures continuity. So we are still very present, but making sure that we respond to the triple challenges of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Third example that we've got, as part of responding as well to the Liquid Fuels Charter, we took a decision as a company to make sure that we bring in historically disadvantaged individuals into our retail network. And we've done that. And today we can proudly say we've got over 60% of our businesses, our retail businesses, being run by Black people. So it is quite deliberate. And with SAPREF, we were responding at the time to our global strategy. And I think it's well known that as BP, we now announced a global strategy in 2020 to be net zero by 2050. And that was a direct response to that. So we are constantly evolving and making sure that we respond to those challenges. And any good corporate citizen that is a multinational must always remain cognizant of the requirements and the needs of the country that they operate in. And I think we've done a pretty decent job at that.
So what role is BPSA then playing in the oil and gas industry at present, and what plans are there to address that trajectory?
Yeah, so if you look at our business today, indeed, we no longer own a monopoly in the value chain. We've ensured that we bring other participants into the value chain, right from refining, importing, retail sales, as well as some of our transportation. That's another example that I actually missed out on the transportation. We had a strong empowerment partner that we were working with. No, in fact, it wasn't an empowerment partner. We had a supply development candidate that we were working with, which was Magwande. And Magwande is a logistics company, and we've developed them over many years for them to actually take over our transportation. So we still remain in the business, and we remain, but we use them as our transportation company. So that's actually a good opportunity for us. But in terms of where we are playing at the moment, we are a small company, focused and deliberately focused at that. We are focusing on retail sales to our consumers, mining, agriculture, commercial, as well as mobility. If you are driving every day, you reach out to a BP site. We've got a convenience offer, we've got our loyalty programs, and we service fuel. Coupled with that, Castrol, we actually are growing that business and have recently entered into Kenya. So we're actually stepping out of South Africa into other African markets and making sure we grow that brand. And for us, we see that as a flagship lubricants brand that can grow throughout Africa.
And then just maybe finally, Taelo, looking into the future, any specific developments in the pipeline? You've touched on the rest of Africa.
Yes. So if you look at the liquid fuels industry as it stands today, I spoke about refining earlier on. We've sold the refinery to the Central Energy Fund, and we're fully supportive of their efforts to resuscitate refining. However, in the interim, we have a challenge we've got to address, which is around security of supply and making sure we've got sufficient tankage in order for us to respond to the challenges that an import model presents itself, which is a long lead time. So, any country needs to make sure that it has sufficient supplies and, that the security of supply is guaranteed. So we are looking to invest, and we're in engagements with landowners, and primarily in this instance with Transnet, to make sure that we are able to invest in resilient infrastructure while we support government's efforts to bring back refining. So that for us is a big investment that we'd like to make. Coupled with that, we recognize we've got consumers, we've got a service. You'll see we've been doing a lot of upgrades on our retail sites, and we're looking to grow, particularly in the areas that have not been well serviced by mobility before. So you'll see that there are some sites that have come up. We've gone into rural areas such as KZN. We've recently launched a few sites there. We are launching a few sites in Limpopo. And we also recognize that Gauteng is fairly populated, but we'll still continue to respond to those needs through, whether it's digital interventions and just moving with customers' needs.
Well, thank you. We're going to have to leave it there. Fascinating 100 years already and looking like building on the next 100. Thank you very much for joining us, Taelo.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
That was Taelo Mojapelo, the CEO of BP Southern Africa. Stay tuned for more insights on Business Day TV.